After 13 years of exposing lies in the media, I discovered the biggest lie of all. They want you to think racism is random, accidental, just bad people doing bad things. But what if I told you anti-Black racism was engineered, programmed like software, marketed like a product, and designed to survive across generations? That's exactly what I prove in my new book, Us versus the Machine, How Anti-Black Racism Was Programmed, Marketed, and Made to Survive. This isn't another book about what racism looks like. This is the blueprint of how it was built, who profits from it, and most importantly, how to dismantle it. I spent years connecting dots that they never wanted connected, following money trails that they thought were buried, exposing the machine that runs on our oppression. Knowledge is power, but strategic knowledge is liberation. Get Us versus the Machine on Amazon today, because once you understand the system, you can beat the system. You know, many times you'll see a lot of African children, a lot of times African children, not so many Caribbean, but definitely African children being adopted by a lot of these white families. And then you'll bring those kids here to America. And a lot of times, you know, as Black America, we be looking like, what's the get down with that? Sometimes we see these kids, their hair not right. You know, sometimes you could tell the energy is off, something's going on. And we worry about those children that we see, you know, with some of these white parents, because we know what the get down is. Well, you have a woman that was adopted by one of those families. She's from Ethiopia, and I want you to hear what she has to say about the whole thing.
So I just saw a video of this young Black man who said every time he sees a Black child with a white family, kind of side-eyes them and is like, are they okay? Are they cool? And I just wanted to say, as an Ethiopian adoptee, I'm so incredibly grateful for the Black community, because y'all are the only ones that have ever actually consistently questioned that dynamic, instead of automatically jumping to, oh my God, be so grateful. And I just wanted to highlight that, because adoptees, like you're the only group that isn't shocked when we say adoptees have been by white people. Their adoptees have been sold into like modern day slavery. Like they're sold to white people who treat them like they're slaves. That's true. Their adoptees have been just sold into like labor. They just are seen as just servants. There are adoptees who have, you know, been adopted for political gain, for religious gain, like all those things that I've talked about before. But the Black community is never really surprised. But that's because they understand that intent. Oh my God, these white people intent. What intent? Like they know about intent. They have generational and deep historical understanding of how dangerous intent is. So I just find it so incredibly ironic that, you know, of course everybody else, you know, we have even Ethiopians will sit there and say, you're so lucky to an adoptee who's like hanging on for their life. They'll sit there and say, good, you know, be grateful for what's been given to you, while they are probably actively not being fed, while their education is being compromised, while they are being constantly conditioned and told things about their people, about their culture that just isn't true, about their language, not being able to speak their language. So that be Ethiopians, white people in general, they're always the first to be like da-da-da-da-da-da. And then thank God for the Black community, because they're the only one that ever sits there and says, we know better. Are you okay? No. And they're not. People are like, well, is it going to actually make a difference? Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Because the reality is there's no safety net for adoptees. Nobody's checking on them. Nobody gives a literally. That's just to say thank you to the Black community. I know you guys are always picking up the slack for quite literally everybody, but thank you. As an adoptee, like we speak for other adoptees, like, thank you.
So you heard it from someone that was adopted from Ethiopia, brought into those households, and now you're hearing the horror stories that some of them going through. Do you remember there's a story that happened out of West Virginia where they adopted some Ghanaian children, and then the authorities, you know, end up finding out that they literally had these kids in slavery? So you went way to Ghana, got those children, and put them in slavery. See, they don't try to pull that mess too much with Black American children. But I've always said, like, why are they, like, they have a lot of poor children in Eastern Europe. Why don't they go over there and adopt those children as part of their culture? They could, you know, bring them back. They can do whatever. But no, they want to go adopt kids from the African continent. And sometimes some of them parents over there were like, oh, you wouldn't adopt my kids, take them to America. And in their mind, they thinking, oh, well, you know, they'll have a better life, you know, but like, no, my kids stay with me. Whatever life we got it together, and we're going to figure this thing out. But there's been so many horror stories with a lot of Black children that grew up in these households. Like she said, they teach them basic self-hate. They're saying the N-word around them. They're teaching also to some of these kids to have a disdain for Black America. But as she said, Black Americans were the only one looking out. Because we know these folks. We know them, ladies and gentlemen. We know them like the back of our hand. We have been dealing with them for hundreds of years already. And they're not a progressive people, so they don't change. They don't. Their feelings have not changed in hundreds and hundreds of years about us, the Black Americans. So if you don't like Black Americans, surely you're not going to like an Ethiopian. Clearly. The only difference with Black America and a lot of the African cultures is that when they show up, people are all nice and happy to see them. And when they show up in our area, you're like, what he want? What she want? Because we have been burned so many times about just showing up. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we look at them like, we don't be dancing and cutting the jig because they show up. No, we trying to figure like, you know him? You know her? Like, what they got going on? That's the cops. Like, we trying to figure out what they got going on and show up in our spaces like that. It's just bottom line. But Ethiopia were having a problem constantly, and I remember a few years ago, they had stopped the foreign adoptions. I don't know if they picked it back up, but they had stopped it. Because a lot of bad things was happening to Ethiopian children. Being taken to Europe, being taken to the United States, and many other places. And so they'll say, you know what? All these bad things happen to Ethiopian children. Now they stay here because at least in Ethiopia they'll be alive. They're not going to go over there and, like she said, take their life, do a bunch of, violating. You know what I'm talking about when I say violating. They do, a lot of times they do it. Now you say, well, not all of us do that. I'm not talking about you. We can't, just because not all has done it doesn't mean we dismiss the issue. Once again, those children, if they're going to be adopted by somebody from America, let it be either Ethiopian living in America or a Black American family or whatever. They need to be with somebody that has some ties to African descent. Period. Because at least we know what to do with the hair. We definitely know what to do with that. And we'll have that child out here looking all kind of ways. And for sure, we're not going to abuse that child. We're not going to talk down on the child's culture. We'll take the child to the culture. Say, I want you to learn your culture too. Definitely, Black culture. We want you to learn your culture. That's just how we get down. But yeah, African government should not allow that. No. If it's not to somebody on the continent or somebody in the diaspora that proven themselves to be good people and loving and will take care of that child, keep that child in their homeland.